What's going on, guys? Teddy Baldassarre from TeddyBaldassarre.com. If you're new to this channel, this is where we review watches available for purchase on our website as an authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry. We're going to be looking at a really awesome one today with the Marathon Search and Rescue Arctics. This is a 36mm dive watch, white piercing dial, fantastic looking piece. But as always, deeper dive review, things to consider both in the positive and negative end at the end. And also all relevant links will be in the description down below if you are interested in learning more and purchasing this watch. But guys, let's take a closer look at this piece. All right, now first looking at a rundown of the specs, we have a case size of 36 millimeters, thickness of 13.6 millimeters, lug width of 18 millimeters, lug to lug of 43.5 millimeters, water resistance of 300 meters, movement is a Sellita SW200 automatic, crystal is sapphire, crown is screw down, and price $850, our price $680. And in addition to that, if you use promo code ARCTIC, if you're one of the first 5 people to use that code, you get 2 free NATO straps with your purchase. Just add any 2 NATO straps on our site, put it in the cart, check out with the watch, and you'll be good to go. So definitely take advantage of that while you still can. Now, ever since the launch of our store, TeddyBaldassarre.com, Marathon has been one of the leading brands in terms of sales and interest, and I think it's for good reason. If you're not familiar with Marathon, they're a Canadian brand producing relatively attainable tool watches made in Switzerland and have a storied history in production of military timepieces, as they have been supplying watches and clocks to military forces and governments, including the United States and Canada, since 1941. Since then, Marathon have developed excellent military-oriented tool watches, specifically for use in land, air, and in this case, the maritime environment. Now, taking a closer look at this Arctic version here, this is the MSAR, so this is the medium size. You may have seen my review of the GSAR, which is the 41mm option of their search and rescue lineup. But this 36mm one was certainly a video, but also a watch that I think got a lot of interest when dealing with the subject of smaller wrists, because dive watches, small wrists, typically don't always go hand in hand. And I think this, for where it falls in price, definitely checked off a lot of boxes for those that are looking in that direction. That said, with this Arctic version, we are then shifting the color and the focus here really to that white dial surface, which really works with this design if you ask me. But first, looking at this one on the wrist, much of the same as what we saw with the previous MSAR that we reviewed. Now, this is a timepiece that's going to wear pretty true to that 36mm size, and considering you do have a bezel on the outside of this, rotating bezel, it's almost going to make this dial appear even smaller. And then contrasting that with how far the dial is sitting within the actual case as a result of the tritium tubes on this watch, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the moment here. This is going to make this one probably wear even closer to a 35mm watch, if I'm going to be completely honest. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you are somebody with, say, a 15cm wrist, I think you could absolutely pull this off with great confidence. I would just maybe be wary of just the fact that this is a small watch, and when you factor in a rotating bezel along the outside, that is going to make it wear even a little bit smaller when you're considering dive watch standards. Looking at a 43.5mm lug-to-lug distance, so pretty compact there, and the thickness is probably the only thing that is sizable of mentioning here. 13.6 millimeters with that thickness. It does sit on the wrist pretty naturally, and just given again how far seated the dial surface is within the case, it does kind of create a thinner type of look on the wrist when you are looking down. Now, when it comes to bracelet and strap options, you do have both a bracelet version as well as a strap option to go for. This one that we're going to be featuring here is going to be coming on this rubber, vulcanized rubber strap. Comfortable in its wear, also will have a plethora of different holes in the actual strap to size this according to your wrist, and for a watch that's going to appeal to smaller wrists out there, I think that's a great added benefit here. And unlike a lot of other straps out there, you can actually punch the holes yourself if you want to add them very easily. So pretty nice there. The strap does not taper, but at the end it does feature a signed Marathon buckle. And then in addition to that, again, take advantage of being one of the first 5 to actually get 2 free NATO straps with your purchase. So take advantage of that promo code ARCTIC at checkout if you are interested. Now, looking closer at the case finishing itself, pretty straightforward in what you might expect from a watch of this styling. Brush finish across pretty much every single surface imaginable, which really does work well in this tool military style look that it's certainly going for. A couple other points of emphasis here will be with the actual side of the bezel. You're getting a very nice, solid notched edge of this bezel, which is going to make this thing very easy to rotate. It's 120 click, really nice with its action. Has a lume pip at the 12 o'clock that will help with orientation in the dark and also timing different events. And then also at the 3 o'clock, you're going to have a crown, a knurling crown that's going to be easy to engage. Engages in typical fashion. It is screw down, so once you unscrew it, hand winding at the first position can change the date at the second position, and then is hacking at the farthest out point, so stopping the second hand while setting all the other hands for precise time. On the outside of that crown, you also are featuring 2 crown guards that are sized appropriately, serving their purpose of protecting while not getting in the way of engaging that crown. Following suit with the brush finish that we've seen throughout on the case back, we have a simple screw-down case back, which also denotes some important information, things like the NATO stock number, the ISO certification, cage number, water resistance, and several other key points for this watch. Now flipping the Arctic back over, let's talk about probably the most noteworthy aspect of this piece and probably the most recognizable distinction from other brands out there, which is this dial and how it kind of interacts with the case. The first thing, again, that you're going to notice right away, at least for me, is just how far seated the dial is within the case itself. This is, again, a byproduct of the tritium tubes that are used on the hands as well as the applied markers across the dial. Now, tritium is a different luminescent material. It's different than what you would find with superluminova. Superluminova, how it reacts to light will allow it to shine brighter for shorter periods of time. But the upside of tritium compared to, say, superluminova, for example, is it does not actually require an additional light source to actually charge it. But in terms of constant luminescence that will be coming from a material, tritium is a great choice. It's not going to shine as bright as superluminova, but it does offer constant illuminating. And when considering the use case of these military-style dive watches, I think that is a huge bonus. That said, tritium, like many vintage watch enthusiasts probably already know, will eventually fade, and Marathon states that these will last up to 25 years in terms of an aging process. The dial here features 2 shades of illuminating, with all the hands and markers containing the typical green tint, while the 12 o'clock marker contains an eye-catching orange to assist in orientation of the watch. Along the outside of the dial, we have a detail line minute track containing 1/4 of a second markers for precise timing, large black hour markers for the 12 and the 24-hour scale, a date window nestled between the 4 and the 5, the writing of Swiss made at the bottom of the dial where Marathon has been producing their watches since 1939, and the peculiar use of a radiation symbol at the 3 o'clock. And the presence of this is just ensuring that this watch is in compliance with the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The hands on this piece are of a syringe style. In this case, with this white dial, they're blackened, which I think really looks attractive and adds an additional contrast to the format. And you're also getting a cool red dip second hand with a tritium tube at the end point. I think this honestly looks better in white than black, in my just honest opinion. I'm always a big fan of white dial watches in general. I just gradually kind of lean in that direction. I think it's partially because of legibility in most cases, and I think this is a perfect example of that, and it transitions better than I would have even expected it to when looking at those original MSARs. Now, flipping this Arctic over, we do again have a closed case back, but it's going to be housing the Sellita SW200, an automatic movement from one of the most predominant and well-known Swiss manufacturers of mechanical movements. Now, when going this route, you're kind of just getting that just peace of mind that comes with getting a movement of this caliber. Straightforward 28,800 vibration per hour, 4 Hz, hacking and hand winding movement. So hacking, stopping that second hand when pulling out the crown to the farthest position, and a 38-hour power reserve. But you're getting solid reliability, serviceability, and in terms of regulation, Marathon does regulate these pieces, and just giving some anecdotal evidence here, this one's running at -2 seconds a day. So really solid performance that you're going to expect out of this. Time-tested Swiss movements, and considering this one's available for under $700 on the strap, I think this is a very, very solid movement for the price here. Now to just unpack this Arctic and just maybe some things to consider. Now, this is a watch that is small. It's really a watch for smaller wrists. I could even see it being unisex for a woman that kind of wants a more, I would say, tool-oriented watch. This is certainly something that's going to fit the smaller of wrists out there. If you are somebody that's on the fence about it, I would probably recommend just going for the GSAR. But chances are, if you're actually even watching this video up until this point, you're probably looking in the direction of getting a watch for smaller wrists, especially a dive watch. And I know, as somebody with a small wrist myself, how it can be quite limiting in terms of what is available on the market. So I think this one certainly fits the mold there for somebody that would be looking in this direction. This watch is just unapologetic when it comes to being a military-style watch. The tritium tubes, how the dial is seated far within the case, the knurling on the crown, the high notches on the bezel. It's not going to be for everybody, but if you are somebody that likes this military-style timepiece, likes the more tool-looking aesthetic, and has a smaller wrist, something that's very much underserved if you factor in all those attributes, this is, I think, the watch to go for in this price range. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. Also, hit the link in the description if you are interested in learning more about this piece and also purchasing it. We're an authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry, full factory warranty, and one of the most secure places you can buy a watch online. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.